All right, I'm gonna let a few more folks in the room, and I'll get started with a couple of announcements, and we'll jump in.
Good morning.
Hi.
Are you exhausted from the birthday bash?
I'm still working on getting it together. Yes.
Got it. Yeah. Well, it was really awesome.
Yeah, there were lots of you that were there. It was a good time.
Yeah, great job.
Thanks. I wanted to talk to so many more people, but there was just so much to do.
I know. I feel like when you're hosting something like that, you don't get to fully be in the event either.
Yeah, at the end of the night, I thought, oh, I really should drink water. I didn't even do that.
Or eat something or anything.
Yep, forgot to do that too. I ate a cake ball at the end of the night. Okay. All right, so while we are waiting for a few more folks to hop on, I'm definitely behind on email. I know some of you have reached out in the last couple of days. Is anyone having trouble with their mentor? And then there's a couple of beauty brands that we're still waiting on getting paired. So we found a couple of folks in the last week that will be a good fit for you all. So that will be coming soon. So I know off the top of my head, Bindu, I think Super Coffee is, I think they're still waiting to hear from you. And then Connie, you were gonna repair you with another person as well with your request. So I'm just letting you all know that we're catching up on those emails. And then let's see, Brittany, got your message. We will take care of that today and ping your advisor. And then just a quick note that we really want you all to take the lead as well, right? So when you are connected with your advisor, really lead that relationship. They want to help you, but they can't help you if they don't know what you need. So don't be shy about getting right to it. That's what they're also expecting. They really want to hear what your needs are. So don't be shy about that. And if you need help at all, feel free to reach out, and I'm happy to help facilitate the start of that relationship if you need that support. And then next Monday is another CPG homeroom event that we are hosting. I know a few of you went to the last one. We'll be bringing in a Facebook marketing expert to join us for that one. I know that marketing resources has been another big request from this group. And I am really excited to introduce everyone to Albert Swantner today. Albert actually was, or is, no, was, we haven't fired you from the board, Albert. I don't know why I said was. Albert is not yet, is one of our founding board members of Naturally Austin. He has also been a founder himself in CPG, currently a founder of Everly. And he is also an investor. You're a general partner. Is that your official title at the fund, Albert?
Yep.
Cool. And because I want to build on the conversation that we had last week. Last week's conversation about investment was really helping you all kind of understand the ecosystem of investment. I brought Albert in today as a founder and as an investor to kind of go a little bit more deeper into that AMA. And we also wanted to touch on KPIs. I know there's been a lot of questions around what should I be focusing on? You know, what are the things right now that are going to move the needle for my business? So I think Albert can be a great partner for this group to provide some support. So Albert, why don't you take us away? Tell us a little bit more about you.
For sure. And if anytime you guys have questions, put them in the chat or just unmute yourself and ask. I want this to be as interactive as possible, and you can ask me anything, I'll answer, I don't care. So my name is Albert Swantner. I have been doing CPG stuff for, gosh, almost like 10 years, not successfully for those 10 years. So I had a company called Sway Water that went through SKU, and we raised, I don't know, $500,000 or so. And we ultimately shut down, but I learned a whole lot on that journey. It was a fruit infused water company. So really similar to Spindrift, before Spindrift was Spindrift, and before Waterloo, so like before all these competitors came in and way over crushed us. But it was a really good experience, and I met some amazing people, and that's kind of why I'm here today, And so from there, I joined the Naturally Awesome board and helped build this community, which I love, and I love the people here, and I love what we do, so I can answer questions about that. Along the way, so my background's engineering too. So this is all like my background's very, very weird, but I have an engineering background. So I had a tech company called Mobile Tech RX, and we sold that company to a private equity firm last year. And so part of that exit was we raised a Series A from Silverton Partners, and also kind of got me into the investing scene. So I'm a general partner at the Fund Austin, which is a micro VC firm. And so it's really cool. So it was started by Jenny Fielding from Techstars New York. And so she kind of, I guess, like franchises these different groups all across the country. And so we do Texas and Austin. We raised 1.5 million from VCs like Silverton and Wild Basin. And so we're kind of like a pipeline to help them find cool investments. And so we're going to invest in about 30 different companies in Austin and Houston, Dallas in the next 18 months. And so that's our thesis there. So currently I have a brand called Everly, and it's like an energy mix, and it does instant coffee and kind of a whole bunch of like drink mixes. And we're primarily D2C right now. We're doing about $1 million in revenue. And so that's what I currently work on in the CPG space. So yeah. So Katrina, you're my Sherpa. So what should we talk about first?
Yeah, I think that one of the big questions over and over is hearing from an investor about how you all are looking at deals right now. So I think let's take one step back and talk a little bit about what is exciting to investors right now. What are the opportunities in CPG?
Yeah, awesome. So what's really unique about the fund, which is where we invest, is we invest early. So we would be your first check into a round that you were doing. And so we kind of have a different lens, right? So someone like a Silverton or a Live Oak or a Springdale, they're going to be looking for someone that's much farther down in their journey than we are. So that means we're looking for different things, right? So someone like Silverton or Springdale is going to be looking at your metrics and your traction, your growth, and all those things. We're looking for more founder, the market that you're in, is the product solving a need. So we're looking at totally different things. And so for me specifically, what I'm looking for is, is this the right person to solve this problem? Do I think that there's a problem here? Do I think that this person has what it takes to make this business succeed at all costs? And so for us, even though we're a small micro fund, right, we are still looking for returns for our investors, right? So we're hoping to return 10 times our investors' money. And so every deal that we invest in has to return our entire fund, right? And so that's how we look at investments. If it's a good, solid business that's more of a lifestyle brand, that's not going to be a fit for us. We need to be able to see like, okay, this can be $100 million brand plus. And that's kind of our criteria for what we're looking for. Does it have the legs to do that, we think?
Yeah, and then you mentioned, is this a problem to solve? I think that really depends on, or the excitement around that, and how founders position their product and the problem. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because that is part of the attraction for investors, right? So how can founders dig a little bit deeper into the problem that they're trying to solve? How can they communicate that? How as you as a founder, tell us a little bit from an Everly perspective, right? You're doing $1 million in revenue. What problem are you trying to solve there, and how, and so that we can kind of help folks here navigate that piece?
Yeah. And so I think for that, what I mean is, is there a plausible white space? Are you taking advantage of trends that we think are kind of headed on the way up and not headed on the way down, right? Is it a Me Too product that I've seen 100 of, right? And so if that's what it is, it's got to be, something has to be really differentiated for it to work. So for Everly, right, there are a bunch of competitors, but we kind of have a niche of, we advertise to women who are over 50, right? Which is not typically served by most of these brands that are like, a bunch of dudes and high energy. So like, that's what's different for us, is like who we're marketing to and who we're advertising to and how we position our brand for those people. We're making an instant coffee that's like a 3-in-1 organic coconut cream latte, right? So like there are things that we're doing to make that feel super unique. It's compostable packaging, it's sourced from Vietnam, it's all these things that are positioning as a unique product, right? And so for us as investors, what we're looking for is a product unique? Is it taking on trends that look interesting? And like one thing, so my friend Janet Springdale is one of the the main people there, she always told me, like, as I'm looking at CPG brands, like, can I imagine this brand on the shelf of a Walmart and like being in everyone's home, right? And so I think that's a really interesting lens for when we're looking at brands is, hey, could I see this brand being like a mainstream brand success? Because that's kind of what it's going to take to be at that next level. And if I can't, I just can't invest. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know that at this stage, you also said believing in the founder, and does the founder have what it takes? So we have a ton of founders on this call. Tell me what types of attributes you're looking for to really kind of assess whether the founder has that.
Sure. So the number one attribute, which I think it's unfair, but it's just the reality, is like, have you previously been successful, right? So like the first time I went out to raise money, it was so freaking hard to get anyone to believe in me, right? But now that I've sold a company and like have these successes, it's much, much easier the second time, right? And so we're looking for a pattern of, oh, I know how to do this. I'm going to be able to blow this up, right? If you don't have that, what we're looking for is kind of like grit and determination. And for me, like an understanding of what you're getting into, right? I think a lot of entrepreneurs dive headfirst, which I think is great. But from an investor, I want to understand, like, do you have a good feeling of your metrics? Do you have a good feeling of what it's actually going to cost to accomplish the things that you think you want to accomplish, right? I think entrepreneurs a lot of times underestimate how expensive things are. So like, oh, we're going to launch in a Target. Okay, well, how much is it going to cost to support a Target rollout? Because getting into the doors is great, but if you can't support the velocity and do promotions, and like, if you don't have that whole strategy thought out, that's not going to be a successful launch, right? And so I want to see, does this person fully understand what they're getting into and have the funds to really take advantage of it? Or are you saying, hey, we're going to do D2C. We have our cost per customer acquisition figured out. Here's what our lifetime value is. And here are channels that we use, right? That is okay. This person understands D2C. They're going to be able to grow this machine, and not like we're losing money on every customer, but we're going to figure it out soon.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think building a relationship with investors before you need the money is super important. How have you successfully seen that? And what have you been impressed by that founders have done with you?
Yeah. So I think it's that old maxim, right? It's like, when you're asking for advice, you'll get investment. When you're asking for investment, you're going to get advice. And so I think, especially in the early stages, that's really critical, right? So if you go out asking for these people for advice and kind of build that relationship, they're going to start to see those things that I talked about: the grit, the determination, the drive, the ability to learn and be coached. And those are going to want to make them invest, right? If you go pitch someone an investment, they're just going to purely look at your numbers and all these things. And if those are not in a good spot, they're just going to pass and move on, right? So in my opinion, what's helped me the most is kind of like building relationships over time, and then asking for money after you kind of know the people and you're more comfortable. And it's not just cold reach out, because cold reach out is tough because there's just so many. So for instance, so at the fund, we're a micro VC, we're super small. This year, we've already evaluated 70 different deals, right? So you can imagine it's been 4 months. So we've evaluated 70 deals. And so we see so many different things, but the ones that we're most likely to invest in are the people that have pre-existing relationships that we can vouch for and say, this is a person who knows what they're doing, or they're driven, or some way to really connect with that entrepreneur. And that's going to help kind of grease the investment wheels a little bit. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. And you're a pretty active person in the community. So if people are going to events and you're seeing them networking, they're following up on emails, they're sending you a newsletter and sharing their wins. Are those activities that would help build confidence for
100%. I love that. Right. And like, if you want to meet with me, just like research my background and saying, hey, I want you to help me with these specific things. I love that, because I want to help, right? But I don't want to have to do the work to figure out how to help you, right? I want you to do the work, and then I'm happy to assist and jump in and do what I can to make it work.
Yeah, definitely. So I want to switch gears a little bit, because I think that, again, this stage of the company, of our founders here, everything is urgent, everything is important. What is the thing that people should be focused on right now at this very, very early stage?
It's a great question. I think for me, where I have gone wrong in the past is I focused on things that were really shiny. Like, so for instance, like Pusha T was one of our investors, the rapper. And so we were going to get Pharrell to invest, right? And so I put so much effort in Pharrell to invest in our stupid company that he never did, right? And I was like, damn, I should not have done that. And a friend of mine, like, he's not here, so don't mention this to this person, but he was like, he was going to be on Ellen, right? Got on Ellen, 0 sales from Ellen, right? And so like, I feel like there's this inclination to chase these like super shiny, like, oh my God, this is going to happen and we're going to go to the moon. When that's great, but like, that's not a business, right? Like those are one-off random occurrences that are great. And if you have a fundamentally good business, that is going to help you. But like, I think, you know, now that I'm doing this kind of on my second act, I'm much more focused on my margins, my customer acquisition costs, my channels that I'm using to grow, the people that I have around me, making sure I have good vendors doing each of the pieces. So really for me, more focused on business fundamentals, making sure those are super solid, and that if these one-off random things happen, like, you know, whatever Kim Kardashian tweets about it, I'm in a position to take advantage of that great thing and fundamentally have a business that's going to make money, you know, as opposed to chasing, you know, these rabbits. Anyway, that might be unique to my situation. I don't know.
Well, I think that there are lots of opportunities that are coming up for lots of folks on this call. So we won't name names. Albert, I know who you're talking about, so we won't name names. But I would like to touch a little bit on the personal development aspect, because what you're talking about is you're chasing certain things that look like a win because of ego. So how do you separate yourself from that? Like what have you done in the past to?
It is so hard. It is so hard because that stuff feels really good when that happens, right? Like it feels like such a win. It's just, I guess for me, the only reason I'm maybe like old and jaded now, I don't know, it's just because like I've seen those big.
You're not even that old. Like you're younger than me, okay? Like
I'm 37 now, but you know, like I've seen those big wins happen, and like what happens afterwards, right? Like, oh, we got into this retail that I've been banging on the door of, and it was like a shit show, right? Like I worked so hard to get into Albertsons. We did like an Albertsons rollout for Sway, and like it was a disaster, like top to bottom, just like was the worst decision ever. But I worked so hard to get into Albertsons and then talk about how many doors it was, and like I would go to Albertsons and be like, oh, where's my product on the shelf? And they're like, I don't know. Who are you? I'm like, what do you mean? I just paid to get this product here. And I'd have to go to the back and it's buried under a giant pile of shit. And I'm like, what in the world? So it's like, you know, it's really hard it's hard to separate yourself. So I think for me, like, I'm always excited about those opportunities. But again, it's like, focus on the things that I can control, that I understand, that are not just like random things that happen to me. So it's super hard. I don't know. I love the ego stuff because it really does feel good when that stuff happens, honestly.
Okay, well, let's talk about why it was a disaster then. So dig into that. What made it a disaster? What were those mistakes? There's a lot of folks here that are on the verge of closing a retail deal. And so there's a lot of dangers in that, right? So
there's a lot of dangers in that. I mean, I think the biggest danger is overexpanding, right? Because you're focused, not you, and it's like that, you know, this other you. It's like really focused on doors, right? Like, oh, I'm gonna be in this many doors. Like that doesn't mean anything. Like who cares about that, right? Like what is your velocity per door? Are you selling as much as humanly possible through those channels? Like I would much rather see you be in 100 stores and have amazing velocity, the best selling product in those stores, than be in 5,000 stores and half of them don't even know where you are. And like, are you on the shelf in some back? Like, it doesn't matter if you're not selling through those channels. And so ours was a disaster because, you know, we paid a slotting fee that was expensive for us at the time because we didn't have any money. And then they were not incentivized to sell the brand because I didn't do their marketing promotions that they insisted that I do. So like for them, I didn't fully understand what they wanted, right? They wanted a super high margin on the retailer end. They wanted me to pay for promotions. They wanted me for in-store tastings. And I was just like, I literally don't have the money for that, but I'm going to put it on the store and I'm going to tell this great story and it's just going to sell. And then it didn't. And then at the end of the day, like they had us in the, you know, those racks they put up, they're just trying to like dump as many products as they can for 50 cents. And I was like, this is super depressing that this is where my product ended. And that is not everyone's story at all, but it's just some of the danger in like not being able to support these retail channels fully and like being able to dive in and do a good job and just not having infrastructure to succeed at chains of that size to compete against the brands that are there. I don't know. Is that?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then your mom's like, Albert, you're on sale. Oh
Yeah.
no. Are
Yeah.
you
Oh, you have
okay?
50 cents at the store. That's good, right? It's like, no, that's
And your
not
mom
good.
buys all of them, and your mom's the only one buying your product.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Hey, you know what? You got what you got to do.
Yeah. So, Madhu, you have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on that point. I think retailers themselves are very confused lately, unless you go out and make a big hoopla about your brand and then approach a retailer and then get on their shelf, and then they know that, okay, you have XYZ social media influence and other things, so that they want your brand to drive foot traffic into the door. Correct me if I'm wrong, Albert, but I'm starting to see more of this, that before, IRI data were more important for retailers and their own internal metrics were more important for us to get on the shelf. Nowadays, if you're killing it with 2 million followers on Instagram and other places, a retailer is more likely to get you in. And I'll just throw an example out there. Um, Chamberlain Coffee, TikTok celebrity gone viral, and everybody jumped on board. I can't get a hold of GoPuff. I've been trying for like 9 months. I can't get anyone to talk to me there, and even the one person, it's been 9 months. Just to give you an example. And Chamberlain Coffee, in 9 months, they have launched. They're in New York. They're in so many other places, right? So that, how do you combat that, and how do you go with an educated argument to the retailer and say like, hey, we are not Chamberlain Coffee, but we're here. We have a far superior product. Let's say I don't know about Chamberlain Coffee. I'm just giving an example.
Yeah. So, I mean, the way that I would do that is build in your own backyard really strong, right? Have a really strong presence in the place where you are, right? So if you can say, hey, I'm in Royal Blues, or I'm in, Wheatsville, and we move, 10 cases a week of this product, that's good, right? Or, and if you can build a following at the farmer's market, or like wherever you are in your journey, like build those super crazy advocates, right? Like, and I think you're right. They're wanting to know, like, when we submit to retailers, they're like, what Twitter followers and what are your Instagram followers? And they're looking at your social media and looking for engagement, because they want to make sure your brand's not a dud, because there's just so many brands, right? And that's why I think on retail, build up your social media following, get into, a local retailer, and like do all you can to make that the most impressive product they have on the shelf, because they're going to talk about it and they're going to get other retailers. And that's how you get that ball rolling kind of organically. The other way is to like pay for it, right? And I don't know y'all's situation, but like that is an expensive, difficult thing to do. And if you don't have millions of dollars and some celebrity backer, you're going to have to kind of grow organically and get the ball rolling on your own. I feel like that's a better way to build a business anyway. It's more sustainable, it's more real.
And one quick follow-up, Albert, as an investor and in your community that you see, not just yourself, other investors as well, when they see a company that is building a solid foundation with product is paramount for us, and it's taken over almost 3 years to get the product right, and then get it into the market and have traction, have good margins and all of this. How much of that is appreciated? Because I've come across plenty of people where they're like, oh, what's your traction? And oh, we only look at you if you're over $1 million revenue, and you have to have $1 million revenue within the first year, and other things, which are, kind of like what you said earlier. You have to be successful already to go and get money. But how do you get your first job before you have job experience to go and seek a higher, better job, right? So it's that conundrum.
It is a conundrum, right? And it's really, honestly, it's not really fair, because you have a lot of people that are starting companies that have family money or rich friends or something, and they just get them to give them money, right? And so that sucks for entrepreneurs like us and like you guys. I don't know all your situations, but it sucks, right? If you don't have rich friends, what are you going to do, right? Like how do you do that? How do you call up your neighbor who has $1 million mansion and have them throw $100,000 into a business that doesn't exist? That's super hard. And I think that's where you've got to find people like me in the fund who are like looking to invest in kind of underrepresented founders who are willing to take a risk, who are looking at the traction that you've been able to do and your grit and saying, hey, I'm at the farmer's market, I'm grinding the way, but I have a business that's ready to go. And kind of, you know, getting that organic ball rolling as big as you can on your own without trying to raise a bunch of money, you know, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs spend so much energy raising money. I mean, I've seen it over and over and over, like just trying to raise money for months and months and months and months and months and having it not come together. And having the truth be like, you don't have an investable business yet. Like, it's just, it sucks. Yeah, it's not fair.
Yeah. I have so many other questions, but there are people lining up. So I respect that. And I'll catch up with you another time. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. And y'all can email me anytime too. I'm happy to meet with y'all.
I will definitely.
If it's valuable.
I'll reach out. Thank you so much.
No problem.
All right, Brittany, you're next.
Yeah.
Hi, Albert. My name is Brittany Coleman. My company is called Tough Cutie. We make premium women's hiking socks, but have a larger goal of supporting women from the ground up, as well as increasing diversity in the outdoors. We just started pre-selling about a month or so ago and have also been approached by some pretty big name retailers in the outdoor industry. So hopefully going to avoid some of those pitfalls you just mentioned as we go down that road. But I was hoping that you could talk a little bit about, I have two questions actually. The first one is, given your background in technology as well as straddling CPG, can you talk a little bit about what it means for you as an investor to see a tech-enabled CPG company? Like, what does that mean for you, and how is that valuable? And then the second one is, I'm thinking as I'm putting together pro formas about who that first strategic hire should be. And so I'd love your opinion on that as well.
Sure. So for the strategic hire, what areas of the business do you are passionate about? And what areas do you want to do, right? So I guess when I'm looking for a strategic hire, I'm thinking a complement to the things that you're going to own, right? Because if you're a marketing person, you hire another marketing person. My worry is like, well, what about the operations and sales and all those other things? So like, where do you like to play?
Yeah, I do see myself as being the face of the brand, being very front facing. And then operationally, I come also from a tech background. I was in the ERP and PLM space for a while. And so from an operations standpoint, I feel like I have some good insights into this industry as well. What I don't like are, what I'm less skilled at, I'd say, is sort of CFO type of competencies. I also feel like sourcing is an area that I don't have as much skill, especially when you get down to yarns and denier and all of these very technical concepts, but that from a P&L perspective, if you are going to get some efficiencies, like you really need somebody who's going to negotiate your costs down. And so that's an area that I'm looking at. And then on the marketing side, while I do feel like I can be front facing, it's a skill to do SEO, it's a skill to do, email marketing. So I think that I can be the face of the brand. I can do TikToks and blah, 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 blah. But I think that there's also digital marketing is a skill. And it's not one that I have. So that's another area that I'm kind of considering.
Totally. Okay. So the way I would look at that is you can get partners and vendors to do a lot of that work, right? And so for me, and this is just my experience and my history, but I'm really cost conscious, right? I'm not the person who's going to go hire someone for $100,000 as a small, because that's going to stress me the hell out, right? And so I would look at finding people who can plug in those gaps, right? Someone who that can help you with a little SEO, someone who can help you with some demand gen, someone who can help you write blog posts, right? And so for you, kind of crafting the strategy and then finding people to plug in for hundreds of dollars here or there as needed, and then really waiting until you absolutely need that hire, right? Because that's where I think you start to get a really high burn, and that's what can start to sink you, right? Because then you're overspending month after month after month, and then you're having to raise money, and now you're being distracted from building a great business. And so, but I think if you are ready to hire, I would look for a complement to what you're looking for, but really focused on someone who can help you with your go-to-market, whether if it's online, right? Someone who really understands CPG, demand gen, marketing, or whatever your strategy is, or if your strategy is retail, someone who really understands retail pricing, distribution strategies, right? So really find an experienced person in those areas because they're so tricky, you know, like how you price it to all these different distributors and how you manage those channels and how you get into retail, what it costs. I'm like, if someone's done that before, they're going to be 10 times better at it than someone who's trying to learn that on the fly, because they're just nuances about how to do that that can really hurt your brand if you don't understand it. So I'd be looking for experience in those areas. And in the other areas, I'd be looking for drive and passion and culture fit and affordability, right? But don't skimp on the super critical, like supply chain stuff is hard. And also like distribution, pricing, retail strategies, like get someone who knows how to do that. Yeah. Cool. I don't know if that, oh, the other question, tech services or tech-enabled CPG. I think that's cool, but I, as a tech investor, what's great about tech is the way that tech scales up, right? Not because even as an investor, I don't like tech-enabled services either, because that the scale of that is different, right? For every dollar you make, you have to spend 50 cents on whatever services you're doing, right? So I think as a tool for making your CPG brand valuable, I think that's really awesome. And like helping you increase your margins or helping you get product market, like whatever you're using the tech enabled for, I think is great, as long as it feeds into your CPG business, right? If you're trying to bolt it on as like, oh, we're really an AI play on something random, that's where I start to say like, are you good at those things? Are you just kind of like doing a whole bunch of things, like sprinkling on keywords, like, oh, we're going to do an NFT for socks? I'd be like, I don't know about that.
I don't know.
Cool. So yeah, that's how I think about that. So as long as it's core to your CPG business and help, like Lamique does a really good job. I don't know if you'll know Kim Roxy, but she does a good job doing tech-enabled, helping find those matches with your skin color and those types of things. Like I think that is great because it helps her get customers, retain customers, make it feel like it's a premium brand. That's a good use, I think, of tech in CPG.
Yeah, like I'm thinking a lot about. Oh no, sorry, just to reply,
go for it.
Like Third Love is a good example of someone like their core thing is bras, and they've got, I don't know if you're familiar with Third Love, you may not be, but you know, they built their quiz essentially that you can do online, and then they surrounded it with the inventory and then with the guarantees and all of the things like that. And I mean, it's not the same product, but
no, I think that kind of stuff is really cool, and like other ways to sell, like other channels, and like those quizzes to like get you in, and like that's a great marketing funnel, right? So I think that's all amazing stuff. And as an investor, like if you have those kind of strategies, I think that's really compelling. So yeah, I like those things. Connie.
Hi, my name's Connie. I'm founder of Horology. We're in the personal care space. We do menstrual products. I had a question about talking to investors about double bottom line, or the importance of even a triple bottom line in terms of, you know, it's a eco-friendly product. It's good for the people's bodies, non-toxic, good for the planet. And then there's the third element of period poverty and trying to tackle that and donating to those, you know, in need. And in my perspective, with the people that I've talked to, people just, you know, care about numbers and right, numbers in terms of the bottom line, you know, revenue. How important is that to the fund, or are there any perspectives on finding mission-driven investors?
I think investors run the whole gambit, right? You have the investors who are literally not going to care all about that, and like if you want to do that, cool. If you don't, like literally don't care. And I think you have some in the middle that are like interested, but not sacrificing the other things. And then I think you have some that are willing to sacrifice a little bit to get that, right? And I think for me, I would tweak my pitch based on who I'm pitching, right? And I think you can read the thesis of the investments and kind of like where else they've invested. Do they invest in B Corps? Do they care about like whatever? And then I would kind of tweak my pitch to fit what they're looking for, right? Because you don't want to dive into that stuff if the VC is just not interested. For the fund specifically, you know, we have a really big emphasis on women and entrepreneurs of color. And so like that is important to us. You know, I think we're more in the middle though. Like we can't sacrifice like returns or whatever for those types of things, but those do make it more compelling and will get us to listen in an investment. So I personally also really like that stuff. I think it's critical that businesses take a bigger role. So for Everly, right, we're transitioning all our packaging to compostable, and it's more expensive and all those, but like, I firmly believe that is what we need to do to make the world a better place, right? And so I think you just got to find investors that align with that. And if they don't, if you still have a solid business, then, you know, still do those things, but maybe don't, you know, emphasize it so much.
Yeah, it's just starting out, and all of these things sacrifice revenue a little bit, obviously. And so it's just figuring out how much of that, like, do we want to do a buy one get one business model, because that's going to cut our margins, significantly. All of our packaging is already compostable and biodegradable.
I mean, where I would say is like, don't sacrifice who you are, right? If you want to do a buy one get one and your investors don't think that's cool, then that's the wrong investor for you, right? Because like, if you start sacrificing, like after they invest and get in bed with you, like they're just going to make you do more stuff you don't want to do, right? And so like, it's better to have alignment at the beginning, because then you're closer to where you want to be. If there's already misalignment, it's just going to get worse and worse. And then you're going to struggle with your board, and they're going to want you to do these things. And you're just like, well, that's not who I am, right? So like, make sure you have good mission alignment on the investors that you get. Don't sacrifice, especially at the beginning. It's not worth it.
Okay, that's great to hear. Okay, cool. Thank you.
That's just my opinion. Like we all get in situations where we get desperate, right? Like for my first company, I took an investor because I was desperate, and like that was not great, right? So just you got to balance it all and do what's right for you, though.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah. Who's next? I can't tell.
I think Kamara, I think you were next.
Kamara.
Hey, my name's Kamara Samuel. My brand is With Adley Naturals. It's a personal care and wellness brand. So you had touched on a little bit on Brittany's question, talking about different ways that you can find like one-off kind of situations to help when, rather than going straight to hiring a full-time employee for like 100K. Do you have any specific examples for like newer companies? What sort of things do you think, or services do you think make sense to kind of look for and like find somebody who can help out for a couple hundred, as opposed to like things that you should continue to own?
Are you primarily retail or DTC, or what's your go-to-market?
Primarily DTC, and also like vendor markets locally.
Gotcha. So I mean, what I've done is like someone to manage our Amazon, right? So like we outsource that, and the person that we outsource to is freaking incredible. And I don't think about that ever, right? I have a monthly meeting and I check the numbers, but like that's totally out of my brain space. And it costs, I think it's like $1,000 a month or something. And it's like, awesome. We have someone who manages all of our social media content creation, right? Like I trust them. They're great. They find these vendors through some sites and they manage, like, that's great. That costs like, I don't know, a few $100s a month, right? And so like, for me, those things are non-core. So I kind of peel those off and do them. Even our manufacturing, we have someone who manages our manufacturing runs, which we only do every 4 months, non-core, right? So like, those are the things that for me, I understand how to outsource in a way where it makes sense. Now, the brand, I think, will eventually get to a point where we're going to want to have someone in-house manage all of our marketing, right? But for right now, I kind of like chunk up those pieces. And so for me, I would be really thinking about someone to acquire customers and who really understands that channel, right? Like if you do, I don't know how you're selling, but like Google ads or Facebook or whatever your strategy is, like find someone who really understands that natively and can run those for you. And then like try to pay them as little as possible up front and have it be based on like commission sales, right? Be like, hey, we're going to give you 5% of all the sales that come to this channel. We're going to track them all, and we're going to pay you like $500 a month or something, to really help mitigate those upfront costs, but be willing to pay for sales, because like, hell yeah, if you can sell, like I'll pay you. Yeah.
Any suggestions on how you find these people?
Referrals. I would use referrals from,
Okay.
So like what I would do is I would look at a brand that you hopefully know that's doing something that you really like and say, hey, who is doing this for you? Like y'all are killing it. And see if they'll give you those contacts. Now, I don't know if they will, because people are really weird about sharing those sometimes, but like, it can't hurt to ask, right? And so find brands you admire, be like, hey, who's doing your social media management? And they might say, oh, it's this vendor, they're freaking awesome. And then boom, now you got a contact that's vetted, that you trust. And then you can even say like, what do you pay them? How is your contract structured? So you can really go into contract or negotiation with all the ammo already.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
ARP.
Hi, thank you. Hi, Albert. So my question is about, my question is about like, how do you go about, I think it's kind of echoing with what a lot of people are saying, is because, we use a lot of different resources, but finding like the perfect fit. For example, I'm I'd like to, because I'm so new, and I do have D2C sales, for example, and I do have a few stores in the Austin area, but I don't want to hire full-time staff yet because I don't think I'm there yet. But I wouldn't mind speaking to a few consultants. And that's what people are saying. But for example, I had a call with a consultant today who insulted me in the morning, and I was like, well, that's a good start.
That's not a good fit. There we go.
Yeah. Everyone told me to go to her, and I did, and she like kind of insulted me, and I was like, okay, well, next. So I guess that's what I'm trying to get at, is like picking the right person that fits the kind of the niche you're in has been a little challenging for me, is like, because CPG is very large, and I'm looking for like, so I guess, how do you kind of vet the right person for a specific role? Like, for example, I'm looking for a consultant to help me with distribution, and like the do's and don'ts in distribution.
Yeah, that's really tricky. I mean, I've had those experiences too, where you think you have a good person and then they end up being really terrible, right? So like, I think the things that I watch out for are, do I have an out, like my signing a contract that I cannot get out of for some long period of time, right? Don't do that initially. Like, I always try to do some like 30 to 90 day trial period where we can bail if it's not working. And that, I mean, mutually, that should make sense to them too, because like, they don't want to be wed to you if they don't like it either, right? And so I think try to set that trial period. And then in the trial period, make sure that you have clear expectations for what you hope to get out of it, and try to communicate those with the vendor, right? And so for distribution, you can say, hey, at the end of this 90 days, I hope to be in this many doors. I hope to have, or whatever it is, this much velocity. Just kind of like get on the same page with them of what they think they can do, what you're expecting, and make sure you're aligned. And then track that over the period of the trial period, right? And if they don't meet your expectations at the end, I think then you have a decision where like, okay, they're going to make up some excuse, right? Of course. So does that excuse seem to make sense, or do you think it's bullshit, right? If it's bullshit, then be like, I'm going to find someone else. But if it seems to make sense, then like, okay, like then kind of make a judgment call at the end. But like, if someone's an asshole to you, like it's not going to get better, right? Like that's the thing that I realized. Like, you're like, oh, it's going to get better. Like it's not. They're just going to be worse. They're just going to be bigger dicks, and like just totally move on. Yeah, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, and I think again, you have an amazing community here. I think naturally Austin has this huge, like there's so many cool communities in town where get a handful of vendors, right? Like get 3 or 4 of them, have those intro calls and be like, does this person understand the space that I'm in? Ask them questions that you know the answer to, that you're hoping at the answer. Like, hey, give me some brands that are close in my space who you think is doing something interesting, right? And see if they can tell you something that you don't know or that you do know. Like, okay, they're validating that you're on the same page and the same wavelength, and you're looking for the same things, and you have the same values and the same ideas of what's going to work. I think could be helpful. But yeah, I mean, get as many opinions as you can and just vet them and see which one has the best feel into the trial period. See if that works. Does that help? I don't know, answer your question.
Yes, that did. And I have one more quick question. I'll be super brief because I know everyone wants to ask you. When you had said earlier, like Albertsons was kind of a bust in the beginning because it was just so large. Can you tell me what is like a good number? Because, for example, I do have a chain that wants to work with us, but they're just saying like, go to 46 stores and see how you do. I mean, for me, I'm like, that's huge. Do I push back and say, no, can we just do 10? But they're like, I think you'll be fine at 46. Do you have like a number that you think like that's safe to go with instead of like 1,000 doors at one time?
So what I would say to that is, if you're doing well, they will always add you in more stores, right? Like if you go into 100 stores and you're crushing, they're not gonna say, oh, let's put you back in 50. Like you're like, that's never gonna happen, right? They're always gonna want to expand as you do well. So what I would say is like, I think it's great to say, hey, I know you think we can do 46 right now. I really want to do 10 stores that are close to me where like I can target ads, like make sure it goes well. And you'll get into those 46 stores over time. So like in my opinion, and I know like everyone's got an opinion, right? But I would say start smaller, crush it, and then they will expand you. But you'll have a better feel for the cadence and what's expected and how much it costs and like your velocity, so that you can do better forecasting and make sure you don't run out of product or whatever struggles you might have. So I think it's okay to push back and say, I want to do smaller. And usually the retailer will be like, fine, you know, generally.
Thank you. I appreciate the advice.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Marilyn. I had a question more kind of on the investing piece, being now you're in a VC fund or firm. With your previous companies, do you mind kind of going over what your pathway was if you did the traditional like friends and family, pre-seed, seed, taking the steps from angels to VCs? And then, because my main question on that is, I've heard like very good things and also not so good things once you get starting to work with like VC funds and like bigger groups. And so just any advice on like when to know you're ready and also when to like take that step.
Totally. Yeah, that makes sense. So my journey, like my CPG journey has never ended in like an amazing success raising VC money. So I don't know about that one, but on the tech side, right, we did, I think 3 friends and family rounds along the way. So we raised 100 grand to kind of get our MVP off the ground. Then we raised 200 grand to kind of expand what we were doing and do some more marketing. And then we raised a Series A of $4.5 million, right? And then 2 years after that, we had a term sheet from Bain to invest, it was like 10 or 15 million, or to exit the company. We decided to exit, right? So that was kind of our little micro journey. I think the biggest thing is, if like friends and family, I think is different, right? Like they're willing to invest in you. They want to support you. If you return 2 or 3 times their money, they're going to think that's the most amazing success ever. And they're so happy for you, right? And so like, that's great. That kind of money, I feel good about. Also, don't take money from like your in-laws or someone that you if they lose it, they're going to be like broke. Like, don't do that. That's bad. I think that the key with the VC, right, is like, do you honestly, like in your heart, believe that you have $100 million business, right? If you don't, I really would not take VC money, you know, and like, and to me, like that, it's just, that's their expectation, right? And if you go into it not really believing you can do that, I don't know if you will be able to achieve it. That's not to say like that's everyone's path. I think that, I don't know, my personal opinion is that everyone wants to raise VC money and they think it's so great. And like, I don't think that it's so great all the time. I don't think that every business needs to be $1 billion VC business, right? Like, that's not everyone's path. I don't think that's best. I don't think the market needs a whole bunch of $1 billion brands, right? I think as an entrepreneur, if you have a $5 to $10 million success, like, I don't know about y'all, that is like life-changing, crazy money, right? So like, that's freaking awesome. But if you've raised $3 or $4 million, well, that kind of sucks, right? Because now they get that money and they might have a ratchet or preference or like, who knows what. And it's like, well, I shouldn't have raised that money because I couldn't really get there, right? And so again, like, if you don't raise a bunch of money and you sell for 5 million, your life has changed. If you raise a bunch of money and it sucks and you sell for 5 million, you get nothing, right? And so it's like those kind of calculations in your mind, do you really believe you have all the pieces to make a gigantic brand and do you want to go for it? And nothing is wrong with that. Like that's great too, right? But I don't think that's everyone's path. And just because you see all these people doing that doesn't mean that they're going to be successful either. I've heard crazy horror stories from those brands, and I've heard from the VC, like, this brand sucks, we've given up on them. And that sucks, right? Like that's not good either. So just gotta find the right path for you. Yeah, I don't know. Did that answer your question? I forgot.
Yeah, no, it did. I think it was like actually very helpful because it wasn't just a, you know, number or anything like that, but it was like the mindset of like, if you're willing to put in the work and have a huge group of rich people like breathing down your neck to make them money, then you can think about it. But until you're ready for that, you know, build your business. So
oh my God, and they will breathe down your neck. Holy shit. So like the investors in Sway, like they gave me this loan that I didn't want to take, but they're like, oh, you'll be fine. And then they sued me to get that money back. So like I had to borrow money from my in-laws to pay them back because they sued me. And I was just like, what in the world? So like, that's why I'm always just cautious about who you raise money from and like, can they afford to lose this? And do they really understand the risks of investing in a brand, right? A lot of people, they don't really understand that they're probably going to lose everything. So you got to make sure they get it. And if they do, like, take their money and go for it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Cutie.
Hi, Albert. My name is Cutie Trong, and I'm the owner or founder of Cutie Cook Shop. I market Vietnamese/Asian salad dressing marinades.
Cool. Awesome.
I'm currently gearing up to get into a chain of known specialty stores in Texas. But my question is, I turn on video so you can see how old I am. I think in this group, I'm probably the oldest one. But my question is, I am comparing to my group of age, I'm probably in average of knowing the social media, but I'm not there. And so people keep telling me that I need to, and including listening to you, that I need to be very active on social medias and whatnot, including like little TikTok video or those short videos that I saw people so savvy doing. And my thing is, I don't know how, and my children are out of the house and they can't help me. My children are in the tech industry, so they can't help me, or only when they can come home. Is there a social media group out there that I can't afford to pay, but can be willing to take a ride with me and benefit with me? Because right now I'm kind of like stuck and don't know what to do. I got discovered because my son told me I need to be very active on LinkedIn. And that was where I post all my farmers market stuff. And I got discovered by that specialty chain store.
Cool.
I don't want to mention it yet because I don't want to jinx it, because I'm in the, yeah. So anyway, I'm just struggling with the social media side of it because I'm not that savvy yet. So,
so what I would do there if I were you is find some young person who's like just graduating college or in college, who's kind of looking for an opportunity to see what it's like to be with a startup. And the way that I would compensate or incentivize them is by giving them like an affiliate link or something that they can put on social. So like when they run your social, have it go through an affiliate link, and again, pay them for sales they actually generate, and say, hey, here's what I expect. And like, I want the engagement to be, or even pay them for milestones. Like, hey, I want to have 1,000 followers. So like when you hit 1,000 followers, I will give you $50 or like a gift card or whatever you can do, anything to kind of incentivize them to get there. But I'm sure you can find some hungry young person who wants to build a brand and a name for themselves. And you can just, it's all about how you craft it, right? You can say, hey, I'm going to the moon. I have this amazing brand. You can own the social strategy. You can put on your resume and put it together. And like, most people may not like that, but someone will think that's compelling and exciting and will jump in with you. And the way to do that is like, I don't know where you live. Do you live in Houston?
I'm in Dallas. I'm in Frisco.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm sure there's communities up there, but in Austin, like, again, naturally, Austin has a bunch of young people who are running around looking to figure out how to do startups. Or UT has a lot of opportunities to work with students who are trying to build a resume, make a name for themselves, really feel like what entrepreneurship is, right? UT also has a program, it's the Cell Fellowship, but there's another one where like they have entrepreneurs who want to learn about it and they'll partner with your brand for free, and they will, build a marketing strategy and help you execute it, right? Katrina, what's that called? It's not the Cell. What is it? The one that they have?
I'm blanking on the name.
I can't remember the name either.
Something for you to also take a look at, and really for everyone. Don't just think about like a marketing intern. There's a lot of entrepreneurs or students that want to become CPG entrepreneurs coming out of nutrition schools as well. And these are all things that, they're going to have to do this for themselves. So I think giving them that experience, I would expand how you're looking at that, right? And definitely take a look at what they're doing personally on their social, because that's at the end of the day, like that's essentially their digital resume for you, right? And maybe narrow what channels you want them to do. They don't need to do all of them, right? Maybe just pick 2 max.
Start.
Like Instagram and TikTok or something, or even just Instagram or something like that.
Okay. And I guess I could also go to UTD, which is, in Dallas, and just look in their business school and whatnot and see what program they have. Yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, y'all, we have about 6-7 minutes left. Albert has been on fire today. Lots of energy, lots of awesome answers. Does anyone have any additional questions for Albert before we close out here? We probably have time for a couple more.
I had one. I think we've kind of like been circling this question a little bit, but I just want to straight up ask, like, when is the right time to go in for investment money? Like, is there a certain revenue amount? Should you be like, okay, I need $10,000 to be able to do this. Let me go ask somebody for $10,000. Like, what's the right way to approach it? Because I'm constantly hearing like, don't go too early because you might regret it. But it's like, okay, so when is the exact right time to do it?
That's a good point, right? I think that I kind of feel like that's a privileged thing to say, right? Like, oh, don't get money. You can, that's kind of funny. for me, like, you just gotta do what you gotta do, right? Like, I've done things that are stupid, like raised $100,000 on a price round because that's what that person wanted, and I needed $100 grand at that moment, right? So like, I think on your journey, you gotta do what you gotta do sometimes to get to that next step. And what I try to learn is like, try not to look back and regret the things that you did, because at that time, you gotta do what you gotta do, right? And you make the best decision you can and you roll forward with it. But I would say the right time to raise money, I think after you have product market fit and you know that people want what you have, I think that's a good time to raise some money, right? If you want to raise money from a VC, like a Springdale or something, you know, like, it's just, the bar is so high, like, it's freaking crazy, right? Like, they want to see astronomical growth. They want to see you've got like $1 million, $2 million in revenue, and you got there in no time, right? So like, it's just so hard to raise that VC money. And, you know, you've got to position yourself in a good spot to get that. But I would say if you're doing like $1 million in revenue, you have some options, honestly. Like, there's some stuff you can do with banks. There's some stuff you can do with some family offices. There are individual investors who will look at what you're doing and be compelled. And you can maybe raise it a $3 or $5 million valuation. And that would be like a really good start, right? And if your business is on fire and you did $1 million in the first 6 months, like, totally go to some of these VCs and say, hey, I've got a $50 million revenue business buried in here. Help me realize this. But yeah, I think after product market fit is a good time to get some seed, friends and family. And if it's 10 or 15 or $20,000, you could do like a safe or a convertible debt that's super easy and cheap to do, and bring them on. Yeah. I mean,
Albert, when you say,
sorry, go ahead.
Well, you said, so product market fit, I'd love for you to expand a little bit on what signals you should be receiving to know that you have product market fit.
So for me, when I say product market fit, I guess I don't just mean like people buy your product at the farmer's market. I mean that you have a strategy for what you're going to do next, right? Like, farmer's market's not scalable. So for me, when I say product market fit, I would say, hey, I have a D2C channel. I know how much it costs me to acquire my customers, and I'm ready to grow this, right? And you could do a lot of that for no money, right? Like, throw it on Shopify, buy some quick ads, tweak the ads to see what works, understand how much it costs and how many, like, you can kind of track all those things very cheaply. But then once you have a little story of, hey, this is how I'm gonna go, like, really go to market, it's a great time to raise money, right? Or even retail, like, hey, we're in 3 Royal Blues, we sell, 15 units a week. I'm gonna expand to 50 stores. That's great. That's product market fit as well, right? And sometimes those things don't go well. You get into Royal Blue, then they pull you after 6 weeks because it didn't sell. And it's like, okay, that doesn't mean anything's wrong, right? Like, retool, tweak the product, now go into Tom's Market, right? And make sure you've got velocity there. Yeah, so that's kind of what I mean by product market fit.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. I guess me, Katrina, can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Albert, so with regards to sharing pitch decks with potential whoever is interested, like, do you have any just some rule of thumbs or any tips on that? Well, like, what do you look for rather than just blindly just shooting out your pitch deck to, hey, send it to, if you know someone who knows someone, just send it to them. Like, I don't like doing that, but I wanted to hear from you on that.
Yeah, so I think on the pitch deck, I wouldn't put anything in the pitch deck that you wouldn't want your competitors or anyone else to see, right? So like, you shouldn't be putting confidential information in there because it's so easy to share those. So that one thing, like, make sure it could be available and your competitor could look at it and you would feel comfortable that, like, I'm not giving away some giant secret. I don't know. Personally, I like to spread it kind of wide because you never know who's going to find interest in what you're doing, right? And it might be a friend of a friend of a friend who's like, oh, I've been wanting to do chai and I've been looking for this and I have a contact with this. And so like, those connections are super valuable and I've found a lot of success with that. And through the fund, right? Like, if it's not a fit for us, what we do is we post it on our, like, all the investors who invest in the fund can all look at it, right? And so that's 700 people. And we've had people who are LPs in a fund in New York find a deal that they think is cool and contact the investor and invest, right? So like, you never know who's going to see it, and the network effect is really powerful. So I wouldn't be worried about it being shared because you never know who's going to see it and who that person is and what they're going to think. And as soon as you start restricting it, you might lose that because then you might only have your own network. It may not be that big, but your network is like, hundreds of thousands of people that could be compelled by what you're doing.
Yeah, that is a really helpful thing you just mentioned because in my pitch deck, which I'm still sharpening it up, I do have a very critical component, which is unique to our business, that I don't like just putting it out there for everyone to look at, except for those who are interested, those who can understand what we're trying to build and the vision behind it. So I think maybe
I would maybe have two versions, right? I'd have one version that you send out that's shareable, and then another version that you present that is not shareable, right? Because then you can say, hey, I'm going to have a little bit more, you can have some of your financials, like more confidential stuff in that one, but like create a shareable version that like can be blasted out to get that interest. So that's how you could do that.
That's awesome. That's really good advice. Thank you.
11 o'clock on the dot. Albert, thank you for being here. This was a really, really awesome conversation. And of course, I always appreciate how open you are. Also, fun fact before y'all signed on, Albert definitely was one of the people that was hauling crap in and out of the farmer's market. And we were just talking about how much he used to really hate that.
Really, that was like the worst time of my life. I hated that, hauling those stupid tents at 7:30. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, so he's definitely been where you guys are, but I so appreciate everyone here for coming. Really great questions. And yeah, that is it for the day. And I'll be getting back to y'all's email here. I'll be working through all of that today. So keep an eye out. Thank you so much.
My email in the chat too. Please email me. I'm happy to look at your pitch deck, hear you pitch, like whatever. So just let me know how I can help.
I'll get your contact info out, Albert.
All right. See y'all later.
All right. Bye, y'all.
Thank you.